So Boston completes a sweep and beats Indiana to go on to the NBA Finals. And I'm going to start this by talking about Boston, which I don't do very often if you've seen my TikTok, and I haven't done it on YouTube very much. Boston's been really good this year, and that's the most obvious statement in the world. They're incredibly deep in terms of three-point shooting, defense. It's a balanced roster around the board of Tatum, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Porzingis, Horford, and Jaylen Brown. And all the criticisms, all the jokes, all the things aside, they're back in the NBA Finals. And I know it is a relatively easy run because they had to face the Heat without Jimmy. And they had to go in the second round and face the Cavs without Donovan for a lot of it, without Jared Allen with a lot of it, with Darius Garland still having injuries, and Evan Mobley still coming off injuries. But, I mean, they made it. I know the Pacers, too, didn't have Hallie, but they made it. I mean, the Celtics made the finals, and they've been really good all year. And I think a lot of the reasons why NBA social media guys and content creators haven't really talked about Boston is because the main media has. And not just that. I don't want to blame the main media for everything like everyone else. I'm saying that it's just Boston, we know they're good. We've been waiting to see what they can really do. And the Western Conference Finals aren't done yet. Dallas is up 3-0. And you can check out my TikTok if you want to see my thoughts on that and how those games went. But Boston feels like it's their championship to win. And we knew that. We said that last year. We said that the year... Actually, I don't think we really said that the year before then. But we definitely said that last year. And yes, even though Ime was gone last year and they ended up with Joe Mazzulla, Malcolm Brogdon was Sixth Man of the Year. And I've seen Celtics fans crap on him, but he was still good for them for relatively most of the year. And Tatum was... I think Tatum and Brown both had historic seasons. Not historic. Really good career seasons for them. And then they went this year and changed it all up. Marcus Smart was now Drew Holiday, who... That is a big upgrade. Drew Holiday is the Michael Jordan of Marcus Smarts. A guy that offensively can be inconsistent, but in terms of three-point shooting, he offers you a lot. And then now you have a guy that can be a shot creator and a better playmaker. I know Marcus is good, but the Celtics have always needed a better playmaker. And Derek is now able to also be the secondary playmaker. And Tatum is also able to be the secondary playmaker, maybe even the primary playmaker in a lot of nights. And this team's really good. And I haven't even talked about Porzingis yet because he hasn't really played since the first round. Porzingis offers a lot. And I don't want to do a Dallas versus Celtics matchup because not only do I want to not jinx the Mavericks because I am a Mavericks fan, Minnesota, it's not fair to Minnesota to say, okay, yeah, let's just make it Dallas-Boston because they did that before the series. They said Minnesota-Boston. I don't think it's fair to do that to Minnesota yet, so I won't talk about the finals matchup. But let's just talk about the Celtics because they had, 7 players? They broke the record of last season with 7 players having over 100 threes for the year and had 8 players do it this year. 8 players had over 100 three-pointers made this season. In this new NBA, yeah, that's weird. That's still a lot for this new NBA. It's still a lot. Tatum has had struggles this entire playoffs. I even think defensively he has not looked like the same player. But in terms of his rebounding and assists and his basketball IQ, he has improved. I think defensively he can still give you a little bit more. I think he still has his issues defensively. And I think offensively he has had shooting slumps. I wonder how he matches up against Minnesota or Dallas because they both have really good, strong wing defenders. But Tatum is also really strong. And when Tatum realizes he's 6'10", he acts 6'10" and gets to the basket really well. I mean, his layup finishing has always been a concern his entire career. But when he does it, he's good at it. I don't think I could say enough about Jaylen Brown and how well he's been in terms of a scorer these playoffs. Yes, he has been scrutinized for his left hand, for how bad of a shooter he is in terms of just how his jump shot looks. But he's been incredibly efficient. He's been a good shooter, a good shot creator, a good playmaker, a good finisher at the rim. He's absolutely been everything that Boston needed out of Tatum, and they switched roles for this series. But outside of that, I think Tatum's taking a leap in everywhere else he is as a player except defense. And I still think Tatum's incredible defensively. I just think there were lapses a lot in these playoffs defensively for Tatum so far. In terms of defense for Brown, he's still there. He's still got it. He has There's moments where Siakam beats him, but it's Siakam. Siakam's a really good player. You're not going to be a perfect defender. Looking at the Pacers, let's talk about the Pacers, actually, because they made the Eastern Conference Finals, and they didn't have their best player, second best player for 2 3/4 games. Let's talk about Indiana. And I really think they had a good series in terms of how they led in 3 big games. They had 3 games in their pocket. My thing with Indiana, my one complaint is coaching. Rick Carlisle has had issues in the past. It took 13 years for him to win another playoff series, and that was with Dirk Nowitzki and Luka Doncic as guys on his teams. I'm not going to say he's a bad coach because they were the number 1 offense in the league. They were number 1 in pace. They made it to the conference finals. But if you just go with the common sense move in a lot of these games, you win them. If you just foul before Jalen gets to the 3-point line, even when he gets to the 3-point line, you win that game. It is the easy call to make, and he really didn't do it. And then you look at Game 3 and Game 4, they led without their best player, or second best player if you want to say that. And they fumbled it because Carlisle didn't call the timeouts when he should have, didn't make the right adjustment in time, didn't run the right lineup. It just baffles me. It baffles me how they led. And there's going to be questions about Boston because Indiana did lead in these games. And Indiana is not anywhere near Boston, especially without Halliburton. This is year 1 for them in playoff contention, so I'm really, really, really excited to see what they do down the road. Siakam will probably get a max, and they'll probably look at boosting up and developing even more because they have a lot of guys that are like 24 years old. They have 5 guys from the 2020 draft class: Obi Toppin, Jalen Smith, Tyrese. Is Nesmith from 2020 or is he 2022? Anyways, Nembhard showed without Halliburton that he can still be a really good player coming off the bench still. Like he's going to develop, and if he's asked for a bigger role, he'll do it. Like he showed in both games. He's really good. TJ McConnell is a great guy to have on a team. This team is not going anywhere, and I think Siakam was really good in these games in terms of establishing and helping them get started. Like this is the number 1 offense, number 1 team in pace this year. And there were times at the beginning of games where they started cold, especially I think I want to say 3. Maybe it was 1. It was 1. And they looked to Siakam. Like everyone looked to Siakam. And I think having him as the leader is a great idea because Halliburton is better than anyone they had in Toronto with those Siakam years. I think Halliburton also, I'll talk about Halliburton in a minute actually. I think Siakam's a really good leader to have for the future. And obviously he probably won't be your best player. I think Halliburton will be your best player. But Siakam's a good playmaker. I think he still needs to work on his free throw shooting. And obviously he's older, so there's stuff to say with what he needs to work on. But he fits with this team, and he proved that in the playoffs. This was a midseason acquisition, and he proved in the playoffs he fits. And going to Halliburton, he has to remain confident in his scoring ability. That is it. When he wants to, he can score. I think this offseason he needs to work on his driving to the basket, though, because he's so unconfident with it sometimes. He needs to work on his handles, and I'm not the type of guy to do that. Like he needs to have a bag. But he has no dribble moves. He has no skill set in terms of that. Like he does have skills. He's in the NBA, but I think he could be so much better if he gained some sort of dribbling bag, because there's a lot of times where Halliburton goes past half court. He passes to his teammate because he's afraid to break down his defender or even do any moves, and just runs away. And for the entire possession, Halliburton's off ball, and he's just like walking around. And that's my other thing. He needs to work on his off ball offense. He's great on ball. He finds a lot of his teammates and is a great great passer, and he's a great 3-point shooter. He cooks in the mid range sometimes, but because his dribbling's not there, a lot of the time he does like he's like magic in terms of how he's passing. He's really, really good at it. But he's really afraid to break down his defender. And then he's really afraid to dribble past half court instead of just passing to the immediate guy. I think it would really help if he worked on his handles. Miles Turner proved he's not just some trade bait. He's not just some center on a team that's just starting like on a mediocre team. He's really good. A really good 3-point shooter, and I think a lot of people knew that. But looking at how he played in these playoffs, he's better than most people thought. He's a better scorer than most people thought. And defensively, he was a little worse than he usually is, but defensively, he's really good most of the time. This team was not great defensively most of the year, but I think they're growing. I think Nimhard's a good player. Obviously, I already mentioned Nimhard, and then Neesmith. McConnell's older, but still a really good veteran to have. This team's not going anywhere. Obi Toppin, Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith will probably leave this offseason because some team's going to pay him more money. But this team's not going anywhere. I think this is just the beginning for Indiana, and I'm really excited to see what they do next. Okay, this isn't really a finals preview, but I will say I think I like Boston going to the finals. This is their year either way. It feels like that, and I think I've said that, and it just feels like it's their destiny to win this championship, especially with Porzingis coming back. Gives them a whole nother factor to their offense and defense. So I really like Boston to win this just because their team is so stacked around the board. Drew, Derek, Jason, Jalen, Porzingis, Horford off the bench. Then you still have Hauser off the bench. And you don't have to run lineups of Tillman or Brissett anymore. You get Porzingis back. I think against Dallas and Minnesota, I like them to win it. As for now, it was a little concerning how their offense did stagnate in this round against Indiana. There were times where they just lived and died by the three. And even then, their playmaking just felt so weird. I don't even know how to describe it. They still played a lot of iso ball. And I think there's a way Minnesota and Dallas can exploit that. We'll wait to see. I really, really think this is Boston's year to win it. This is Son of a Sports, and I'll catch y'all next time.